On a bright spring afternoon, I was going about my usual tasks at work when something unusual happened. The task management file shared among our department suddenly went missing. At the time, I was the last person to have made changes to the file. My colleague Justin, with sharp eyes fixed on me, threw a question my way. "Stephen, you were the last one to touch it, right? What's going on?" His tone was laced with clear accusation. I answered calmly, "I just edited and saved it. I don't remember deleting anything." However, that single statement seemed to deepen the suspicion of those around me. In the midst of this, my admired superior, Dorothy, stepped forward and defended me. "Wait, Justin, don't jump to conclusions without evidence. Let's take a moment to calm down and verify the facts first." Her composed words slightly eased the tension in the room. Yet, the skeptical gazes remained on me. "My name is Stephen, and I'm 40 years old. I work in the IT department of a mid-sized real estate agency. Originally, I was in the sales department, but I was transferred to IT because I was a little tech-savvy. Most of my IT knowledge is self-taught, and I spend my days tackling new challenges. Recently, our company has been pushing for in-house development, so we've been taking on more direct responsibilities in our work. While modest, I feel that I am growing through these experiences. Every time I come to the office, I see the same scenery: gray carpets, white walls, rows of sterile desks with computers. Outside, I can hear the sound of cars and people talking, but this space feels as if time has stopped. Cloaked in stillness, my colleagues quietly work at their desks, and the occasional sigh adds weight to the atmosphere in the room. My current tasks often involve installing new software and addressing user inquiries. It's not particularly difficult. Most of the issues can be resolved by looking up information online and addressing them one by one. But my daily routine includes additional chores: sorting documents, setting up meeting rooms, and sometimes even watering the office plants, tasks that others prefer to avoid. These duties are supposed to rotate among us, but because I lack advanced IT expertise, critical tasks seldom come my way. As a result, I naturally ended up handling these mundane jobs. Some of my colleagues jokingly call me the unpromoted chore guy. Even so, I find moments where I feel like I'm learning something and growing, however slightly, through this work. And for me, those moments mean a lot. There was a time when I didn't enjoy my work. Learning something new is always challenging, especially for someone like me who started from scratch. It was 2 years ago, back when I was still a clueless newbie, that our department leader suddenly resigned due to family circumstances. It all happened so abruptly, leaving everyone in the department worried about what lay ahead. And then, a fresh breeze swept through our office. That's when Dorothy arrived as our new manager. At 36, she quickly earned the reputation among us as a beautiful and dependable leader. But she wasn't just about looks. Her kindness and leadership skills won the trust of the department in no time, and soon, everyone admired her. I first met her on the morning she joined us, during her introduction, in the meeting room. Dressed in a stylish navy suit, with her sleek shoulder-length hair neatly tied back, she carried herself with a poised and intellectual demeanor, exuding confidence. "Hello everyone, my name is Dorothy. I look forward to growing together with all of you," she said. The words "growing together" resonated deeply with me, inspiring me to put in more effort and approach my work with renewed motivation. In the days that followed, she supported us as we gradually honed our IT skills. She always took the time to teach us patiently until we fully understood. For instance, one day when I was struggling to retrieve data from a database, she stopped what she was doing and said, "In situations like this, here's another method you can try," providing a concrete solution. Her thoughtfulness saved me countless times. Working with Dorothy on various projects, I began to feel my lingering aversion to aita slowly fade. There was no doubt her presence had a profound impact. I still vividly remember the time we successfully completed a project. "This is all thanks to you, Stephen." She smiled warmly. That single statement gave me a sense of accomplishment I'd never felt before. Thanks to her, even the mundane aspects of work, commuting, lunch breaks, overtime started to feel a bit more enjoyable. Who would have thought that someone like me, who had resigned himself to being stuck without promotion, could develop such a passion for his job? She has helped me uncover a new side of myself. Now I genuinely aspire to become a dependable leader like her and keep growing. One spring afternoon marked the first anniversary of Dorothy's arrival, but something unexpected happened. The day began like any other, with the usual routine of booting up my computer and tackling daily tasks. However, as lunchtime approached, the shared task management file we all relied on suddenly went missing. At the time, I was the last person to edit the file. That single fact, without any warning, was enough to cast me as a suspect. The situation quickly escalated, and the normally calm office became steeped in an air of suspicion. Justin, the deputy leader who often harbored a sense of rivalry against Dorothy, fixed me with a sharp gaze and asked, "Stephen, you were the last one to touch it, right? What's going on?" His voice carried a clear tone of accusation. I responded calmly, "I just edited and saved the file. I don't recall deleting it." But my words only seemed to deepen the doubts of those around me. Amidst the growing tension, she stepped forward to defend me. "Wait, Justin, don't jump to conclusions without evidence. Let's calm down and verify the facts first," she said. Her composed demeanor acted like a cushion, diffusing the tension in the office and restoring some semblance of order. Justin, however, was visibly frustrated by her leadership. He took pride in his technical expertise, often viewing himself as superior to Dorothy in that regard. His actions and words also made it clear that he looked down on me, considering me nothing more than a glorified errand boy. "Let's restore the file from yesterday's backup," Dorothy instructed. "We can figure out the cause afterward." Following her lead, the file was successfully recovered from the backup, and the crisis came to an end. It was later revealed that the file's disappearance was due to a simple mistake by a new employee who had unknowingly moved the file to their personal computer. Dorothy chose to reprimand the individual lightly, and the matter was resolved. Afterward, she called me into her office and said, "Stephen, I'm so sorry about what happened. You were honest about the situation, but still ended up under suspicion. It's my failure as a leader to have let Justin make such accusations against you. Let's work together on preventive measures to ensure this doesn't happen again." Her words deeply resonated with me. Her magnanimity and leadership left me with a renewed sense of respect for her, and I resolved to grow into someone like her. Over time, we tackled several projects together as a team. Under calm, insightful guidance, I slowly gained confidence in my work. Just as we were finding our rhythm, the company was thrown into chaos. A suspected data breach involving customer information came to light. Rumors spread that a competitor was aggressively targeting our existing clients with tailored property proposals. The head of the sales department brought this concern to Nicholas, the IT division's manager. Nicholas, trusting Justin due to their strong connection as alumni of the same university, discreetly tasked him with investigating the matter, bypassing Dorothy entirely. One day, the 6 members of her team were summoned by Nicholas to the conference room. "I'm sure you've all heard about the suspected data breach involving customer information. I've asked Justin to investigate this matter, and he has uncovered some key findings," Nicholas said, passing the floor to Justin. Justin began speaking in a measured tone, his expression neutral. "I looked into the email transmission logs at Nicholas's request. What I found was someone sending files to a competitor. And that person is, as he manipulated the computer, evidence was projected onto the large monitor. The atmosphere in the room froze in an instant. This can't be happening." The document displayed detailed information, dates, times, and recipients, all pointing to Dorothy allegedly transmitting customer information to a rival company. "Wait, I didn't do this. This must be some kind of mistake." Dorothy's voice broke the silence. Her face turned pale with shock, her expression a mix of disbelief and indignation. "From what I recall, she mentioned having a classmate working at that company, and even going out for a meal with them, didn't she? I've been suspicious about this for a while," Justin said with a conviction that left no room for doubt. "Yes, I do have a classmate there, but I would never leak customer information." Her reply was filled with anger, further intensifying the tension in the room. Her unwavering gaze conveyed sincerity, leaving no room to question her honesty. However, Nicholas, wearing a cold expression, stood up and spoke in a grave tone. "Dorothy, the evidence is too compelling. Until the final investigation is complete, you are to remain on suspension." The room's atmosphere shifted drastically, thick with tension. Dorothy's face drained of color as a mixture of shock and despair overtook her. "This can't be happening." Unable to stay silent, I stood up and shouted at Nicholas. "Nicholas, she would never do such a thing. There has to be a more thorough investigation." I was abruptly cut off by Justin, who turned his icy gaze toward me. "Stephen, someone like you, who's not even on the path to promotion, has no voice here. Show us your proof if you have any." I was left speechless, rooted to the spot. But Dorothy, calm amidst the storm, nodded and spoke softly. "Stephen, thank you. Your words helped me regain some composure. The final investigation might reveal the truth. Until then, I'll accept the suspension." Her words were like a lifeline, providing a fleeting sense of relief from Justin's sharp accusations. Nicholas then spoke again, his tone as commanding as ever. "That settles it. While Dorothy is on leave, Justin will take over as team leader. Everyone, I expect your cooperation." Justin had a smug expression on his face, one that was impossible to ignore. Dorothy's absence was a significant blow to the team. While Justin was undeniably skilled in his technical abilities, his disregard for teamwork made him an unsuitable leader. Without her, the project would almost certainly falter. Given that Nicholas and Justin were alumni of the same university, doubts lingered about the credibility of this so-called evidence. While I was convinced of Dorothy's innocence, there were no clues to prove it. The one thing I was absolutely certain of, however, was that she was not the type of person to commit such a despicable act. As part of his investigation, Justin confiscated Dorothy's work smartphone and computer. Her desk, usually impeccably organized, now seemed unnaturally empty without the familiar sight of her computer. When Dorothy finished packing her belongings, I joined the other colleagues in escorting her to the office entrance. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, and her forced smile betrayed the immense pain she was feeling. Just looking at her expression was enough to fill my heart with anguish. Standing at the office entrance, Dorothy took a deep breath before turning to face us. "Everyone, I'm so sorry for causing all this trouble. I'll be away from the company for a little while, but I promise I'll be back." Her voice trembled slightly, but her words carried a sense of determination that struck a chord with us all. "Dorothy, we believe in you," I said, looking her in the eyes to convey my sincerity. She gave a faint but kind smile and nodded in response. One by one, our colleagues offered her words of encouragement. It was clear from their faces that everyone was deeply worried about her absence. "Thank you, but don't worry, I'll be back soon. When I return, I'll be counting on you all again," she said before opening the door and stepping outside. As she walked away, she turned back briefly, and I thought I saw tears finally fall from her eyes. With Dorothy gone, the atmosphere in the office changed drastically. A place once filled with cheerful laughter now felt weighed down by an oppressive silence. Everyone, except Justin, firmly believed in Dorothy's innocence. Having worked alongside her, it was obvious to us all that she could never do such a thing. Nicholas, for his part, seemed to understand the gravity of the situation. He publicly declared that if Dorothy turned out to be the culprit, he would take full responsibility. But whether those words came from a place of genuine conviction or were merely for show, we couldn't be sure. The company president, not being well versed in IT matters, had decided to entrust the entire investigation to Nicholas. However, this decision raised concerns among many of us, especially since Nicholas had unwavering faith in his protege, Justin. There had been calls to bring in external experts for a fair and impartial investigation, but Nicholas dismissed them, citing Justin's technical prowess as justification for keeping the matter internal. According to the information that Linda from the HR department quietly shared with me, there were actually voices among the executives suggesting that it would be more fair to have an external specialist handle this matter. Yet Nicholas had stubbornly overruled this proposal, prioritizing his confidence in Justin's abilities. Linda herself seemed uneasy about the decision, and her concerns mirrored ours. As a result of Nicholas's choice, Dorothy was left with no option but to wait patiently for a chance to prove her innocence. Meanwhile, those of us who worked closely with her struggled to find ways to support her. Every time I glanced at her empty desk during a break, a mixture of anxiety and anger welled up within me. I couldn't shake the frustration of being unable to do anything meaningful for Dorothy, other than waiting for time to pass. If this situation wasn't resolved soon, it would spell disaster not just for Dorothy, but for the entire company. That evening, after leaving the office, my thoughts were consumed by Dorothy. I didn't just believe in her innocence, I desperately wanted to help her. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't figure out what to do. Finally, on impulse, I decided to take a risk and contact Dorothy directly. With all her company-issued devices confiscated, the only way to reach her was through her personal social media account. Late at night, clutching my smartphone, I sent her a message. "The new project we were working on together is finally gaining traction. It's all thanks to the proposal materials you prepared." As I sent the message, I felt a gnawing anxiety about how she would respond. The next morning, her reply arrived, and I breathed a sigh of relief. "Thank you, Stephen. It's comforting to know how things are progressing. But by contacting me, you might draw suspicion onto yourself. You don't need to keep in touch. I believe in all of you." Her words hit me hard. Even so, I couldn't bring myself to give up. "I believe in you, Dorothy. and I'm not afraid of being suspected. If it comes to that, I'm prepared to quit the company. I appreciate the sentiment, but please don't throw your life away for someone like me," she replied. For a moment, I hesitated, unsure of how to respond. But deep down, my resolve was unwavering. "I'm more worried about you than myself. Are you really okay? And I have a question. Do you have any ideas on how I could help prove your innocence?" After a few minutes of silence, her response finally appeared on my screen. "In that case, I'd have a favor to ask." Dorothy gave me specific instructions. If I followed them, there might be a chance to prove her innocence. Her words ignited a new sense of determination in me. From that day on, I reported to her daily about the progress of our work and the atmosphere within the team. I didn't know how much these updates meant to her, but I hoped they gave her some solace in knowing she wasn't alone. Meanwhile, something seemed increasingly suspicious about Justin's investigation. He had enlisted members of our department to compile the findings, but the scope of their research seemed oddly limited. They were only focusing on specific data and information, as if deliberately steering the investigation in a particular direction. Whether he was genuinely uncovering the truth or hiding something, I couldn't be certain. But my gut told me something was off. A few days later, the tension in the office reached its peak. The president, board members, and other key individuals had gathered in the conference room. The air was heavy with unease, and everyone wore strained expressions. It was time for Justin to present the findings of his investigation to Nicholas. With Linda's help, I managed to secure a spot in the room. Justin began his report. After an internal investigation, it has been revealed that Dorothy sent customer information to a competitor. His voice was cold, almost with a hint of satisfaction. The room fell silent, everyone holding their breath. I couldn't just sit there after hearing that. "Wait," I stood up and raised my voice. "Is that report really accurate?" All eyes in the room turned to me. Justin, clearly irritated, shot back, "Stephen, what's your basis for saying that?" The timestamp of the email sent specifically. The sending time is off. Dorothy was supposed to have already left for the day. At the time she supposedly accessed it, the sent and received records may have been tampered with. I spoke firmly. Justin's face quickly drained of color. "Actually, there was an incident in the IT department where a file disappeared in the past. As a preventive measure, Dorothy and I had a tool installed to track who accessed which files and when. According to the access logs, the person who accessed the customer information file wasn't Dorothy. But that alone isn't strong enough evidence. So I consulted with other executives and asked a trusted external security company to conduct an investigation. As a result, it was found that the send/receive records had been tampered with. The room buzzed with chatter. I took a deep breath and continued, pushing forward. According to the external report, Justin had tampered with the email records, and the person who sent the customer information to the competitor was Nicholas. The room fell dead silent. Nicholas, perhaps realizing what had happened, kept his eyes closed and didn't move for a while. "Explain what's going on." The normally calm president's voice was low and filled with anger. Nicholas finally opened his mouth and spoke quietly. "I was worried about my future. All my classmates became executives, but I couldn't see that opportunity here. The IT department is still in-house, but we're still fumbling around with a lot of complaints. In the midst of all this, a competitor reached out to me. They said if I gave them customer information, they would offer me a high-paying job." Nicholas's voice trembled. "Knowing it was illegal, I ended up doing it after drinking with Justin," he added. His admission of betrayal was a shocking revelation to us. The fact that he had leaked customer information and was plotting to join a competitor was unimaginable. Nicholas's testimony made it clear that he was the mastermind behind the data leak. Justin had been complicit in the plan, trying to frame Dorothy to secure the leadership role for himself. Both of them could only apologize as they faced the accusing glares from everyone in the room. Nicholas and Justin had no choice but to leave. Their careers at the company ended right there. As they exited the room, their backs felt heavy with the weight of disappointment and betrayal. The moment the truth was revealed, I felt like I had overcome a major obstacle. Yet there was also a sense of relief. The case was resolved, and I let out a sigh of relief. But no sooner had I done so than I immediately attempted to contact Dorothy. I sent a simple message on her SNS. The customer information leak issue has been resolved, and your innocence has been proven. It's all okay now. However, the message remained unread, and time passed by. I couldn't imagine the stress and loneliness Dorothy had endured. The weight of that pressure was beyond measure. That's why I wanted to reassure her as soon as possible. But still, the message remained unread. The next day, I checked my phone repeatedly from the morning, but nothing had changed. Anxiety was building inside me. I felt frustrated that I had no means of contacting Dorothy other than through SNS. The feeling of helplessness only deepened. Then I had a sudden thought and decided to ask the General Affairs Department for help. As soon as I arrived at the office, I went straight to the desk of the General Affairs representative. I can't get in touch with Dorothy. Have you tried contacting her personal smartphone? The representative looked a little surprised, but responded, I've tried contacting her several times, but we haven't been able to reach her at all. So we're planning to visit her home this afternoon. Although that eased my mind somewhat, I still felt uneasy. I just hoped that Dorothy was safe and simply hadn't seen the messages. I tried to focus on my work, but I couldn't concentrate. Looking out the window, the city was as busy as always, filled with the usual hustle and bustle. Yet amidst it all, I felt a deep sense of loneliness, waiting for just one person to respond. The next day, my mind was consumed by thoughts of Dorothy. I couldn't stop worrying about what had happened during the visit to her house the day before. In the midst of my unease, I contacted the General Affairs Department again. The reply I received weighed heavily on my heart. We visited Dorothy's house yesterday, but despite ringing the doorbell several times, there was no answer. We also asked the neighbors, but no one had seen her recently. We've tried calling her parents as well, but they didn't pick up. We'll try calling them again after some time. A deep sense of anxiety gripped me, and my heart tightened. The fear that something might have happened to her kept growing stronger. Then, just before noon, my smartphone rang with a call through SNS. The name on the screen was Dorothy. In that instant, I felt my heart leap in my chest. When I answered the call, I heard her voice. Stephen, I'm so sorry for making you worry. Dorothy's voice was weak, but there was a hint of relief in it. How long had it been since I last exchanged words with Dorothy? Weeks, maybe. I fought back tears as I asked, Are you okay? Yes, actually. I've been ill and was in the hospital. Everything just piled up, and I couldn't handle it, both mentally and physically. But when I saw your message, I knew I had to contact you. I was at a loss for words upon hearing her words. I hadn't known she had been suffering so much. I kept asking myself if there was more I could have done. I heard from your message that my innocence was proven, and I felt such relief. It's all thanks to you, Stephen. I can't thank you enough. Upon hearing that, the tears flowed freely from my eyes. I was overwhelmed with relief that she was safe, and everything had come to light. Dorothy must have noticed my tears, and she quietly said again, "Stephen, thank you so much." This ordeal had forged a bond between us, a bond I knew would be unshakable. From now on, we would support each other, building a trust stronger than anything that had come before. The moment I heard Dorothy's voice that day, I knew my life had once again been filled with something precious. After Nicholas and Justin were dismissed and reported to the police, the news sent shock waves through the company. Watching from afar as the two were escorted out of the meeting, I saw them in a light I had never seen before, diminished and small. The CEO sent out an email to all employees, explaining the gravity of the situation and the steps that would be taken going forward. We will use this incident as a lesson to strengthen risk management, improve internal controls, and build a more transparent organization. The atmosphere in the company changed overnight, with everyone starting to show a united front, eager to push for change, particularly among the younger employees. There were lively suggestions about introducing new tools and digitizing processes. I actively participated in building the new reporting system led by the IT department. The view of the city at sunset from the office window was filled with new hope. This incident had been a tough trial for everyone, but at the same time, it had become a stepping stone for both the company's and individuals' growth. When Dorothy returned to work, the office was filled with a spring-like brightness. Her health had returned, and seeing her back, vibrant and full of life again, was a relief to everyone. When she appeared at the entrance, the entire office was filled with applause, full of gratitude and respect. It wasn't just any applause. It was a testament to the victory she had achieved in overcoming her struggles. "Welcome back." Everyone was overjoyed at her return. By lunchtime, I managed to get a chance to have lunch with Dorothy. As we sat facing each other, she immediately thanked me deeply. "Stephen, I really can't thank you enough. Because of you, I've been able to come back to this place." Seeing her smile made my heart race. The strong emotions I had been holding back were becoming impossible to conceal. "Dorothy, I wouldn't have known about your innocence without your advice. I couldn't have done it alone. I'm so relieved that you're back." And actually, as I searched for the right words, my hands were shaking. Looking into her eyes, I took a deep breath and conveyed what had been in my heart. "Dorothy, I've never been able to say this before, but I like you. Since you've been gone, I've been thinking about you constantly, so much that I couldn't focus on my work. Dorothy, will you go out with me?" Dorothy looked a bit surprised at first, but soon a gentle smile spread across her face. "Stephen, thank you. I feel the same way. Your sincerity really touched me. The words you said to me were such a great support. I'm looking forward to what's ahead." Hearing those words, the tears wouldn't stop flowing from my eyes. Emotions surged, and I couldn't even wipe away the tears streaming down my cheeks. With a voice full of emotion, I said, "I don't know why, but I'm crying. I'm just so happy, really. Thank you, truly." I couldn't hold back my feelings any longer and expressed them honestly. From that day on, we faced new projects as partners, bound by a deep bond that was more than just colleagues. I ended the phase of life as an older guy who won't get promoted and worked alongside Dorothy to reform the IT department, striving to introduce new systems and strengthen security. With each success in the project, the trust and affection between us grew even deeper. I can't wait for what's to come, to face new challenges together. The future looks so bright, and I can't wait to see it unfold.
You should get a divorce immediately. When we tested your daughter, I have to tell you this as a friend. After saying that, Paul revealed something shocking. His words left me stunned and unable to hide my agitation.
What? What do you mean?
Paul is a pediatrician. We are at his hospital, but this isn't an examination room, just a private room. It seems to be a place where unused equipment is stored. Paul brought me here and strongly suggested I get a divorce. But more than that, he revealed an astonishing fact about my daughter, Kate. Listening in disbelief, I saw Paul steady his expression as if he had made up his mind.
This might be hard for you to hear, Rebecca, but please stay calm and listen.
Later, I filed for divorce as Paul advised. Due to a conflict with Tom at that time, I had to hastily move out. But perhaps it was a necessary step for a new beginning. My name is Rebecca. I live with my husband, Tom, and my daughter, Kate. In reality, Kate and I are not related by blood. She is the child of Tom and his ex-wife. I met Tom through a friend when I was 29 and he was 33. We bonded over our shared love for movies and food and eventually got married. People around me warned that marrying someone with a child would be tough, but I accepted it with determination. Due to a gynecological condition, I am unable to have children. I thought having a child would only ever be a dream, but Kate, a sweet girl, became my daughter. I was overjoyed. When we got married, Kate was only 3 years old and had little memory of her biological mother. His ex-wife passed away due to complications after childbirth. So, Kate treated me like her real mother and grew attached to me. While I felt happiness, I also felt a sense of guilt towards her late mother, so we all visit her grave every year. During these visits, Kate always says, "I'm so lucky to have 2 moms."
Kate.
Kate is kind and very sweet. I always held her little hand, determined to make her happy. This year marks our 5th visit to the grave. Kate is now 8 years old. As usual, we offered our prayers together.
Hey! Hurry up! Let's go!
Tom called out from a distance. Though he was visiting his late wife's grave, Tom quickly paid his respects and was ready to leave. Over the past few years, I've started to feel that Tom's behavior was a bit cold. If I didn't prompt him, he wouldn't even think of visiting the grave, which made me feel increasingly uncomfortable. I wondered if it was because he was a man, but even so, it seemed too cold. Tom was still kind to me, which made the disparity even more noticeable. After getting married, I realized Tom tended to neglect Kate. He works in pharmaceutical research and is always busy. It seems he left all the child rearing to his ex-wife and didn't know much about Kate. Even at the beginning of our marriage, we had exchanges like this. "Where are Kate's health records?" Health records? Where could they be? Do we need them?
Of course! They contain important information about her birth and vaccinations.
Tom had no sense of responsibility as a parent. I eventually found the health records after a lot of searching, only to discover that more than half of the vaccinations she needed by age 3 had not been done. Panicked, I took her to get the shots. Vaccinations are indeed a moral obligation, but Tom simply prioritized work and forgot about them, which was exasperating. It was unbelievable that someone working in a pharmaceutical company could be so indifferent about these things. I couldn't trust Tom with Kate's care, so I took the primary role in looking after her. Taking care of sweet Kate wasn't a burden, it was a joy. However, when I realized that young Kate didn't feel her father's love, my heart broke. "Dad, he doesn't like me?" "That's not true, Kate. Dad is just busy with work. He cares about you a lot." "Yeah, right. Thanks, Mom." Sweet Kate. Just hearing her call me Mom makes me so happy. But when Kate turned 10, Tom started to change a little. he offered to help with dinner. For me, who had started working part-time again, his offer was a relief. Maybe Tom finally felt he needed to do something as a father and husband. Although I thought it was a bit late, I decided to accept his offer.
Thanks, Tom. Can I leave it to you on your days off?
Yeah, of course. Looking forward to it.
I expect great things.
Tom, who had lived alone during his single days, was indeed a good cook. My burden was lightened, and my distrust towards Tom eased. I felt reassured that Tom also valued our family. But despite spending more meal times together as a family, Kate's mood started to change. Usually, everything was fine, but sometimes she would get upset and take it out on me. At first, I didn't understand why. Her teacher said there were no changes in her behavior, and she played happily with her friends. She had no complaints about her extracurricular activities or tutoring. But after observing her for a while, I figured it out. Kate sometimes felt unwell. That was why she was in a bad mood. She would have stomach issues and lock herself in the bathroom, struggle to wake up in the morning, or occasionally stay awake because she couldn't sleep. These bouts of illness happened about once every 3 months, and I thought she should get checked, so I consulted Tom.
But it's not the same sickness each time, right? It's just occasional bad days.
Well, that's true, but if she gets better quickly, it's not an illness. Don't worry. Rebecca, you worry too much. Tom didn't seem to take it seriously, and I began to think I was overthinking it. Indeed, it wasn't a constant issue, and the symptoms were varied. Even when I took her to the hospital, they said it was stress-related and prescribed some medicine. But I'm going to bed.
What? It's only 7 p.m.
I'm really sleepy. Good night. Kate rubbed her eyes and went to her room without taking a shower. Tom, who was doing the dishes, said, "Going to bed early and waking up early is a good thing." "Good night," he responded cheerfully. Didn't he think it was strange that she wanted to sleep 2 hours earlier than usual? I thought it might be pointless to consult Tom. The next day, I decided to take Kate to a different hospital. Kate, who looked exhausted, and I walked into the examination room together. I was surprised to see someone I didn't expect.
Paul? Right. You changed your name after getting married. Long time no see.
Paul, looking at the medical records, smiled. Paul, who went to the same high school as me, had become a pediatrician and worked at this hospital. I never thought I'd meet an acquaintance here. Paul, who was kind and secretly popular in our class, was still gentle and calm. Feeling reassured by the unchanged Paul, I reported Kate's recent symptoms. Her body doesn't show any particular signs of illness, but would you like to run some tests?
Yes, please.
Hearing this, Kate, who was sitting next to me, said, "Tests?" with an unhappy look on her face.
Don't be upset. It's important to check your health, Kate.
Okay. Good girl. Although she was almost 11, she was still just a child. Kate smiled innocently at my words. Paul also smiled at our interaction.
You know, you two really look alike when you're together.
What?
You're like 2 peas in a pod.
Hearing that, Kate and I exchanged glances. Even though we're not related by blood, we've grown to resemble each other as a family. It filled me with a warm feeling. Both Kate and I felt glad we came to the hospital today. The tests were over, and we were told to come back for the results later. Paul, at the end, said,
If any symptoms bother you again, please come back.
That made me feel reassured. However, in the end, the test results showed no abnormalities. Even after that, whenever Kate felt unwell, we would go to this hospital. Each time, Paul would conduct tests, and each time, the cause would remain unknown. Paul's expression grew more concerned with each visit.
A child feeling unwell once every few months isn't unusual. Doing tests each time seems like a hospital scam, don't you think? But what if something's really wrong with Kate?
I don't know, Rebecca.
I think you're an easy target for these doctors.
Hearing such insulting words about Paul made me furious. But I held back because I never wanted to argue with my husband in front of Kate. Seeing parents fight is one of the most distressing things for a child. Days passed dealing with occasional unexplained illnesses. Kate had turned 12 before we knew it. After a year of finding nothing, I started to think it was just common health issues during growth. One day, we went to the hospital as usual to hear the test results. While waiting in the lounge, Paul came over to me. He asked me to follow him and led us to a private room. It was a bit cluttered, seemingly used for storage most of the time.
For about a year, we've done 5 tests in total. Yes. Did you find something in Kate's test this time?
Calm down, Rebecca. Paul, with an unusually stern face, faced my anxious look. Then, with a serious expression, he said,
I think I know you quite well, Rebecca. You're an honest and kind person, not good at lying. Why are you saying this all of a sudden, Paul? Rebecca, this is advice from a friend.
Paul said something unbelievable.
You need to divorce your husband immediately. Something terrible has been discovered through Kate's tests. What do you mean?
I was shocked by the word divorce, but the mention of Kate heightened my anxiety. Paul, with a serious look, continued.
You need to separate Kate from him right away, or something irreparable might happen.
That's why I want you to consider divorce or at least separation to keep her away from him. Irreparable? What does that even mean? Paul quickly explained.
The first time you came here, we did a test. It revealed the presence of sleeping pills in Kate's body. What? Sleeping pills? Has Kate ever used sleeping pills or sleep aids?
I shook my head at Paul's question. Paul, after a moment of contemplation, spoke again.
This might be hard for you to hear, Rebecca, but I need you to stay calm.
Paul explained that with each test, some form of medication was detected in Kate's system. Sometimes it was a laxative, sometimes painkillers, and sometimes sleeping pills. It seemed likely that over-the-counter drugs were given by a family member, but the medical forms didn't indicate any medication. According to my accounts, we came to the hospital suddenly due to her symptoms, and there was no report of giving her any drugs beforehand. Furthermore, she showed symptoms like diarrhea when laxative components were found, and fatigue and sleepiness when sleeping pills were detected, clearly indicating drug-induced. This led to suspicions that Kate was being given medication by one of her parents, causing her to feel unwell. Naturally, I was also under suspicion. However, to continue the investigation without alerting me, the detection of the drug's components was kept hidden from me as well. Then, in the 5th test, it was confirmed once again that Kate was indeed being given some kind of medication regularly. Upon receiving these results, Paul decided to take personal action. It was a risky move for a doctor, but it showed how much he trusted me.
Isn't Rebecca's current husband working for a pharmaceutical company? Huh? How did you know that? Sorry, I checked your health insurance card. The pharmaceutical company where he works has had a bad reputation with the medical community for a while.
I had a bad feeling about it. I felt a chill run down my spine.
Do you think Tom could be giving something to Kate? I can't rule out the possibility. Kate tends to come over on Mondays or after holidays. Is there anything different about those days?
Something different. When he said that, I realized something. On holidays, Tom always cooks dinner. Our kitchen is not easily visible from the living room, so it's possible he could be doing something without us noticing. Paul's words and my growing suspicion towards Tom were becoming more and more believable. It couldn't be his own child. But seeing his behavior during visits to his ex-wife's grave and his indifference towards Kate until recently, I couldn't completely dismiss the possibility. Balancing my desire to trust Tom and my need to protect Kate, it was obvious which side the scales would tip towards. I wanted to protect Kate. Determined, I looked Paul straight in the eyes. I couldn't ignore this issue. A few days later, I immediately purchased a child surveillance camera online. I decided to use it to monitor Tom's actions in the kitchen. I camouflaged it with a box to avoid detection by Tom. Honestly, I had hoped it wouldn't capture anything suspicious. My feelings for Tom hadn't changed, and I wanted to believe he wouldn't do such a thing to his own daughter. But that hope was shattered a month later. One night, Kate experienced some abnormal symptoms. She had an upset stomach and kept running to the bathroom. Sensing something was wrong, I quickly checked the surveillance camera. What I saw was horrifying. Tom, preparing dinner as usual on the weekend, taking something out of his pants pocket when he thought we weren't looking. A small bottle containing some kind of powder. He put it into one of the dishes. It was Kate's special soup bowl. Mixing the powder into the soup, his expression was not clearly visible from the camera. A mix of disbelief and anger surged through me. How could he give Kate something harmful? After saving the video, I went to the freezer. Since Tom cooked, we had been freezing Kate's leftovers. Frozen packs of Kate's soup. The remnants of that powder should be there. I made sure to push it further back to avoid Tom finding it. This was advice from Paul. Video alone would only be circumstantial evidence, so physical evidence was also needed. I calmed myself and prepared a glass of water for Kate, who had just come out of the bathroom. "Are you okay, Kate?" "Yeah. This happened before, right? Maybe my stomach is just sensitive." "Yeah. Maybe." Kate, looking exhausted and drinking the water, seemed in pain. I didn't want to hurt Kate by letting her think it was her own body's fault. I firmly vowed to protect her from harm, even if it was her own father. I gathered all the evidence and prepared to confront Tom. On Saturday, as soon as Kate went out to meet her friends as planned, I seized the moment to speak to Tom. "What? You said you had something important to talk about. Before that," I questioned Tom, who was sitting on the sofa with his usual expression. "Tom, are you hiding something from me? Not just from me, but from Kate too." "Hiding something? What do you mean?" For a moment, Tom's eyes flickered. I didn't miss that and said, "Take a look at this." Pulling out my smartphone. I had recorded the footage on my smartphone. The screen showed Tom putting something into a powder. Tom was shocked when he saw it, and I spoke in a firm tone. "What is this? What are you giving to Kate?" "It's a misunderstanding. This is a supplement. A sample from my workplace." I had anticipated such an excuse. But to say it so smoothly. He must have been thinking about how to get away with it even if he was found out. Clenching my teeth, I said, "Lies won't work. I've already had that meal preserved and analyzed." "Preserved? Rebecca, what are you doing?" "A laxative was found." "Tom, are you giving laxatives to a child as a supplement?" "That is." Tom's eyes darted even more. Feeling anger towards Tom for trying to lie, I said mercilessly, "Excuses won't work. We've been finding substances in Kate's tests at the hospital." "What?
Rebecca, you said the tests were clear. That's why I... So you continued mixing the drugs?
Tom fell silent at my loud voice. That silence was like admitting to it. I wasn't lying when I said the tests were clear because that's what I was told. Maybe I should be grateful to Paul for this. Thanks to him, I could face Tom without any hesitation, even though I'm not good at lying. I asked Tom the most important question. Why? Why are you doing this? What do you gain from it? Knowing he couldn't talk his way out of it anymore. Tom took a deep breath and said something unbelievable. You're exaggerating, Rebecca.
I just did a little experiment on Kate. What? An experiment? What I gave to Kate was a trial product my company is developing. It's like a clinical trial.
I couldn't understand what Tom was saying. He didn't even look apologetic, so he might not think he did anything wrong. My face turned pale.
You were giving that to Kate?
Calling it that is rude. It's a new drug packed with our latest technology. It's a good thing to give it to her.
A good thing.
I pounded the table in frustration.
You gave her laxatives and caused diarrhea even though she wasn't constipated, gave her sleeping pills and disrupted her routine. And you call that a good thing? Calm down. This is a necessary human experiment.
Human experiment. Tom's laughter scared me. Maybe I was dealing with a truly dangerous person. A feeling of fear welled up. But I had to be brave. If I lost here, Kate would be in danger. An experiment. You just said you did an experiment on our daughter.
That's right. It's hard to tell how much works with just animals. We could recruit for clinical trials. But that's expensive and time-consuming. With my own daughter, I can monitor her regularly and there's no added responsibility. It's an easy and cheap method, right?
My body was trembling. It wasn't from fear. I was shaking with anger. I couldn't believe that Kate had suffered so much because of this.
Don't be ridiculous. Tom, you aren't even a parent. You aren't even human.
That's too much, Rebecca. The Tom standing in front of me no longer looked like a person. He reached out to me with a sickly sweet voice.
I love you, Rebecca. That's why I never gave it to you. You knew it was dangerous, so you didn't give it to me? Then why did you give it to Kate? Because Kate is my daughter. It's only natural for a daughter to help her father with his experiments.
His words were treating our child as his property. This man isn't a father. He's not even human. There's no point in saying anything more. I handed Tom the papers I had been hiding.
This is pointless. Let's get a divorce. A divorce? Of course, I'll be taking Kate. With all this evidence, there's no way you'll get custody. And you just gave another damning statement.
I showed him the divorce papers along with a hidden voice recorder. When I pressed play, Tom's horrible words filled the room again. I stopped it quickly, not wanting to hear more than necessary, and for the first time, Tom looked shaken.
No! I don't want a divorce.
Now he doesn't want a divorce? I looked at Tom with cold eyes.
I've already signed my part. Now you sign it too. But I love you, Rebecca. I don't love you anymore.
I said it firmly. There's no love left for Tom, who has only hurt Kate. It will be hard for Kate from now on. But I can't leave her with someone who talks about human experiments. No, Rebecca.
Don't cry. Just sign it.
As Tom started crying, I felt my emotions growing colder. Tom had loved me before and after our marriage. But his love was twisted. I can't accept such love. After Tom signed, I took the divorce papers and left the house. I drove straight to the courthouse. Just as I was about to submit the papers.
No! I can't! I won't let you! Tom!
Tom arrived the moment I handed out the paper. Tom had followed me, probably in his car. He was completely mentally broken, ignoring the stares of others. He clung to my shoulder.
Let's try again! I'll never do anything like that again! Stop it, Tom.
With so many people watching, I was flustered. The courthouse staff just observed us. Maybe they see family drama like this often. But when Tom tried to forcefully pull me away, someone finally intervened. That person was Kate. What are you doing here? It was our daughter, Kate, the victim in this whole ordeal. She stepped between us and leaned towards me. I thought this might happen, so I came here first. It's okay. I'm ready for this.
Kate.
I was surprised by her sudden support. I had told Kate everything beforehand. The hospital results. The cause of her health problems. And everything Tom had done. It was hard to tell her the truth, but she deserved to know. When Kate learned everything, she was shocked but also seemed to understand. So that's why I felt sick only when Dad cooked.
Kate, did you know?
Yeah. I'm not a little kid anymore. It's astonishing how children grow up so fast. Come to think of it, she'll be in middle school next year. She had grown up so much, my daughter. Feeling a bit emotional, I told Kate that Tom and I would be having a serious talk soon. I also mentioned that divorce might be a possibility. Although I hadn't told her today was the day, smart Kate had figured it out. Perhaps her excuse about meeting a friend was a lie. She must have left the house early and waited at this courthouse.
Kate! Convince Mom not to do something stupid.
Still thinking Kate knew nothing, Tom said that. However, Kate's sharp gaze made Tom's shoulder twitch.
Dad, I know everything. That's why I can't be with you anymore.
Kate.
A dad who gives his daughter strange drugs is scary.
As soon as Kate said that firmly and loudly, the atmosphere in the courthouse changed. There was a stir, and the looks from those around us became harsh.
Didn't that girl just say she was given drugs?
By that father? Isn't that serious? The murmurs of the people reached Tom's ears, making him turn pale. And then,
excuse me. Can we have a word? Huh? The police?
A police officer who happened to be there approached us. The officer grabbed Tom's arm as he tried to escape.
I've been concerned since earlier. Her comment really caught my attention. I'm sorry, but could you and your daughter come with me too?
Yes. Things were escalating quickly. But perhaps this was a good turn of events. With his arm still held by the officer, Tom's face turned even paler.
I didn't do anything.
We'll hear more at the station, so let's go. Okay. With the stern officer glaring at him, even Tom couldn't resist. He silently began to walk beside the officer. Once quiet, Tom was put into a different police car from us and taken to an interrogation room. Kate and I spoke with another officer and submitted evidence. The hospital was also contacted, and Paul cooperated with his testimony. It became increasingly difficult for Tom to escape the situation. Tom was eventually arrested. The interrogation took several days. During that time, I made sure to submit the divorce papers again. I was relieved to gain custody smoothly. Tom had done something truly unforgivable. The moving process was also done hastily. I decided to move to a place Tom wouldn't know while he was still detained. Luckily, there was an available apartment near Kate's school, so I signed the lease. But staying so close might mean Tom could find us once released. I still had that worry. What if Tom barges in again? However, such worries turned out to be unnecessary. Tom wasn't just detained, he was indicted. The reason was Tom's job at a pharmaceutical company. During the interrogation, questioning about drug management and experiment data revealed the company's overall misconduct. Poor drug management, falsified experimental data, and a different manufacturing process than reported to the authorities. All these were extremely malicious, and what seemed like a family issue turned out to have nationwide implications. The police took this seriously and changed the way they handled the case. Tom, holding an important position in the company, was seen as highly responsible and was indicted. The scandal at a major pharmaceutical company became big news and was sensationally covered by the media for a while. I could only watch in stunned silence. In the end, Tom was fined and sentenced to 2 years in prison. I felt genuinely relieved that I had divorced him before it came to this point. If Paul hadn't urged me to get a divorce back then, our family might have been stigmatized for having a criminal in the family. I feel bad for Tom, but I didn't want to be involved. I can't thank Paul enough for his advice. I felt relieved, but there was one problem. Our household income suddenly dropped. Regrettably, our family had been relying on Tom's high income. I'm taking him to court to ensure he pays child support, but I never know when he might stop paying. I also looked for a full-time job, but it was hard to find one quickly. We were facing financial hardship. Just when I was feeling hopeless about our financial future, I got a call from an unexpected person. It was from Tom's mother, my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law, Sarah, lives alone far away. She's always been a rather cold person who doesn't involve herself much in her son's family affairs. When I attended family meetings as Tom's second wife, she never seemed very interested. I don't really know much about what kind of person Sarah is. Sarah spoke calmly on the phone. "I'm sorry, Rebecca. I'm really sorry Tom did that. No, it's..." Even though I did it to protect Kate, I knew that I had been the one to push Tom into a corner. I was prepared to be blamed by Sarah, Tom's mother. But Sarah didn't seem to have any intention of blaming me.
I should have opposed his second marriage. I was worried about Kate and thought it would be good for her to have a mother.
But I'm done with Tom. Then, Sarah offered to give Kate a living inheritance. I was surprised by her sudden offer. "Are you sure, Sarah?" "It's fine.
I've already saved for my old age, and I was thinking of leaving the rest of my estate to my only son, Tom, but now..."
Sarah spoke with a hint of sadness in her voice, explaining that she had been receiving frequent letters from Tom in prison. I thought they might be letters of affection for his mother, but they weren't. They were demands for money and requests for job placements. I was thoroughly disgusted with Tom, burdening his mother even in her old age.
"He would just waste it if I gave it to him. I'd rather give it to my granddaughter, Kate."
Sarah. I realized I had misunderstood Sarah. She seemed uninterested, but she genuinely cared.
"Of course, we'll keep this a secret from Tom. I'll tell him I used it all myself. Thank you so much, Sarah."
I thanked her repeatedly. Of course, I couldn't rely solely on this inheritance. I eventually found a full-time job and started anew. Apparently, after Tom was released, he tried to find Sarah, but she had already moved into a nursing home, so he couldn't locate her. No wonder. I was the one who arranged her admission. We also moved for the second time when Kate started middle school. Everyone in town knew about the court troubles, so we decided to move far away. Kate was happy to move and start fresh in middle school. Now, Tom has no idea where either his parent or his wife and daughter are. It seems sad that he has been abandoned by both, but it's his own fault for trying to conduct inhumane experiments on his daughter. People who don't value their family won't be valued by them. It's as simple as that. Tom had to learn this lesson the hard way. And as the years passed, Kate turned 18. Kate had grown into a young woman and had already surpassed my height. Today, Kate is leaving home. Kate, who is heading to college in Boston, is about to start living on her own. Worried, I kept giving her advice at the door before she left. Kate gave me a wry smile.
I'm going to be fine. Mom, you should focus on your own happiness.
She leaned in close as if sharing a secret.
I gave Paul a little nudge to ask you out. What? I trust him with you, Mom. Bye now.
Kate laughed, waved, and walked out the door. Actually, since then, Paul has been looking out for us in many ways. Sometimes he takes us out for meals or gives us gifts. I was taken aback. Kate really has grown up. No, she's already 18. An adult. Her thoughtful words about caring for me made me happy. My sweet, considerate Kate. The memories of the time spent with my beloved daughter are enough to make me feel fulfilled. Feeling content, I looked up at the sky from the doorway. There, the clear blue sky stretched out endlessly. That day, we were having a barbecue in the yard with our daughter Katie and her husband Brian. Under the warm sunshine, the smell of grilling meat wafted through the air. The beer is running low. Kristen, could you grab some more from the shed and put them in the fridge? My husband Daniel said to me.
Got it. 4 or 5 bottles, okay? Hey, Brian, can you help Mom? Make sure to chill all the beers.
Katie asked Brian as well. Brian smiled and said, Of course, and followed me to the shed at the back of the yard. The shed was relatively new, currently holding a few boxes of beer. When I opened the door and reached for a box in the dim shed, Brian suddenly pushed my back and tried to make me sit on the ground. Reflexively, I twisted my neck to look at Brian's face. Seeing his unusually desperate expression, I was instantly filled with fear, thinking I might be attacked.
Hey, what are you doing?
I tried to shout, but Brian, looking a bit flustered, whispered, Please, just bear with me for a moment.
What?
There's something I really need to check. Brian looked at me with an unusually serious gaze, not his usual kind smile. And together, we witnessed something unbelievable. My name is Kristen. It was a pleasantly sunny spring day. My husband Christopher had passed away after a short battle with illness. Since losing Christopher, my daughter Katie and I had been living modestly, just the two of us. For years, it was just me and Katie, until I met Daniel through a friend. He was the same age as the late Christopher and bore a slight resemblance to him. At first, we were just good friends, but gradually, Daniel and I started to become aware of each other in a different way. However, walking beside Daniel and occasionally catching myself smiling made me feel guilted towards Christopher.
Take your time. I'm in no rush at all,
Daniel would say with a gentle smile, walking a little ahead of me. His kindness drew me in, but I was troubled by my inability to let go of Christopher, who was no longer in this world. Years later, I took over the care of Christopher's grave and shrine from his relatives. Christopher's sister placed her hand gently on my shoulder, not meeting my eyes, but said in a very kind voice, "Thank you for everything." She smiled. I bowed my head, hiding my overflowing tears, thinking I might never visit Christopher's grave again. A few months later, I decided to marry Daniel. We moved into a new house, and I decided to start fresh, throwing away all my clothes and furniture. Keeping any memorabilia of Christopher in our new life seemed like it would hurt Daniel. At first, Katie seemed confused, but she gradually warmed up to him. Before our remarriage, Daniel and Katie had often spent time together as friends, so I think she got used to it quickly. Katie had just turned 15. At that sensitive age, she started wearing flashy makeup and going out more often, quickly beginning to sweet-talk Daniel for pocket money. Because originally, my life with Katie was never wealthy, and I couldn't afford to buy her the things she liked. Unlike me, who was particularly strict about money, Daniel was lenient with Katie. Without asking much, he would take out his wallet and hand over money whenever she said she was going out with friends. When I later cautioned Daniel about this behavior, he responded with a troubled expression.
I'm sorry, but it seems like money is the only way I can get Katie to be nice to me.
He continued to treat Katie specially in trivial matters other than money. I felt as if he was treating her like a princess, which made me happy as if it were happening to me. He was doing his best to love both Katie and me. I kept the wedding ring, my last memory with Christopher, at the very back of my shelf and occasionally took it out to look at it. However, feeling that it was somehow wrong, I sent it all to Christopher's parents along with a simple letter. I'm sorry, but I want to move forward. Am I allowed to be happy? I don't know, but I sincerely wish to be happy. Eventually, Katie became so close to Daniel that she was always by his side. While that was very pleasing, it was also somewhat concerning.
Hey, Dad. I want a new bag, but I'm a bit short on pocket money. What should I do?
Which one? What kind of bag? Daniel peered happily at the screen of the mobile phone Katie handed to him. The screen showed a famous brand bag that even I knew. Katie was scrolling through the phone screen to show him the price, and Daniel scratched his head with a slightly troubled face. It's quite expensive. But, well, it's Katie's request.
Really? Yay! Thanks, Dad.
Katie hugged him, and Daniel smiled. Since I got married, it seemed that Katie's sense of money had become strange. Perhaps it was a reaction to the frugal life we led just the two of us. She started demanding things from Daniel, who would buy anything with a smile.
Katie, don't waste too much money. It's okay. I won't ask Mom. Right, Dad?
She looked at Daniel and laughed happily.
You know, I'll marry someone handsome and kind like Dad in the future.
At those words, Daniel smiled even more happily. After making the promise, Katie returned to her room to study. Katie hoped to go to nursing school after graduating from high school and had started studying seriously for the exams. To avoid disturbing her studies, we didn't turn on the TV at home, and I placed a small radio in the kitchen to keep playing. Our life was very happy. It might have been so happy that I sometimes forgot the fact that Christopher had died. But sometimes, when the radio played the music that was popular when I was young, it reminded me. The melody, the lyrics, squeezed my heart and brought tears to my eyes.
Don't make such a sad face. It's just a bag.
Daniel said something completely off the mark, and I forced a smile. I pulled myself together and warned that we shouldn't keep giving Katie money whenever she asked. Because Daniel had started his own business when he was young and recorded some payments as company expenses. It wasn't a commendable act, and it could potentially affect the company's management situation, so even though I strongly warned him, Daniel continued to ignore my opinion.
You're just too kind.
Days like that continued, and Katie safely entered nursing school and began living on her own after graduation. Katie is working hard as a nurse. When Katie turned 25, she started dating a man her age named Brian, and they decided to get married. When she first introduced Brian to our home, I was surprised, trying not to show it on my face. Katie always used to say.
I'm going to marry a handsome man.
But Brian, while being a good young man, was not conventionally handsome. Brian, who wore a gentle smile and had a kind impression, was reportedly the son of a wealthy family and dressed in well-bred clothes. After the marriage, they often returned home, and Brian always treated Daniel and me kindly, making me feel reassured that Katie had married a good person. One day, Daniel suggested having a barbecue in our backyard. The weather was good, with a piercing blue sky and a few larks chirping. Daniel, who had been eagerly preparing since early morning, was skillfully grilling meat and chatting happily with Katie. Brian was looking for the larks chirping in the sky, but after a while, he gave up and poured himself a drink.
Oh, it looks like we're running out of beer. Kristen, could you add more from the storage room to the fridge? Got it. How about 4 or 5? Brian, can you help Mom? Please chill all the beers.
Brian smiled and, of course. He readily agreed, following me to the storage room at the back of the yard. The storage room was relatively new, with only a few boxes of beer stacked inside. When I opened the door and tried to lift a box from the dimly lit back of the storage room, Brian, who was behind me, forcibly held my back and tried to make me sit on the ground.
Hey, what are you doing?
I tried to shout in surprise, but Brian, looking a bit flustered, whispered, "Sorry. Just bear with me for a moment.
What?
I need to confirm something." Before I could respond, he peeked out from the dim storage room door to check the outside. It was a sunny day, with the blue grass of the yard reflecting brightly. Our figures in the dim storage room were likely invisible to Daniel and Katie. After watching Daniel and Katie from a distance for a while, Katie moved closer to Daniel, leaning on his arm. Katie rubbed her face against Daniel's arm, laughing happily. Their voices were faint but audible. The larks' cries echoed inside the storage room, making it hard to hear their voices clearly. Brian was staring at them intently. Could it be that Brian is jealous of them getting along? Noticing that I had unintentionally laughed, he pointed. Katie looked around and intertwined her arm with Daniel's. Though a bit flustered, Daniel also looked around before happily accepting Katie. It looked like more than a parent-child relationship. The larks' cries ceased. With no wind and no sound of insects, even from a distance, I could hear Daniel and Katie's voices faintly but clearly.
Brian hasn't noticed at all. Isn't it funny?
Kristen is the same. Normally, no one would imagine this.
But this kind of relationship is exciting and fun, right?
I was stunned, listening to their conversation. I couldn't keep up with what was happening. Katie took a transparent bag of powder out of her pocket and lightly mixed it into the glasses that Brian and I were drinking from.
Did you put something in Brian's and my glass?
That's probably a sleeping pill. She secretly visited a psychiatrist recently.
A sleeping pill? Secretly visiting a psychiatrist?
I had no idea what was going on, but how should I take the fact that Katie put a sleeping pill in Brian's and my glasses? We shouldn't stay here any longer. Let's go, but don't use those glasses. After that, Brian and I pretended not to know anything and returned to Katie and Daniel. Katie seemed a little unnatural, glancing at my glass several times. Just knowing she tried to make me drink something weird was shocking enough and made me feel dizzy, betrayed by the Katie I had raised all these years.
Sorry, but I think I've had too much sun. I need to rest inside.
Sure. I'll take care of the cleanup, so go ahead and rest. Lying on the bed in the room, I stared blankly at the ceiling. Why did she put in a sleeping pill? And the way Daniel and Katie were behaving seemed a bit strange. My head hurt more as I wrestled with the thoughts of maybe and there's no way in my mind. After lying down for a while, I fell asleep. In the evening, I went out to the yard, and the cleanup was already done. Brian and Katie seemed to be about to leave, and Brian gave me a look as if he wanted to say something but then looked around and closed his mouth. "Are you okay now?" After Brian and Katie left, Daniel acted as if nothing had happened and showed concern for me. His words, voice, and everything sounded like lies, and I forced a strained smile. "You still don't look well. Should I make dinner?" He rolled up his sleeves and checked the fridge. I remembered there was some meat left from yesterday while the image of him putting a sleeping pill in my glass flashed in my mind. I forcefully pushed his body away. "I'll make it." I quickly made a simple meal. There was no way I could eat anything he made right now. For several days, I was hesitant to touch any of the food or drinks in the house. What if they had been pre-drugged? Thinking like that, I also suspected eavesdropping or hidden cameras, making life at home unbearable. One day, I received a call from Brian on my mobile phone. Apparently, Brian had talked to his parents about the suspicion of the sleeping pill. Brian's father, Andrew, suggested a temporary place for me to stay.
It's driving me crazy living with Daniel right now. I'm so grateful for this offer. It's a relative's vacation home, and it's free for now, so stay as long as you like. Also, I'd like to talk once with my dad.
Brian's voice over the phone was somber. Of course, it was. His wife might be having an affair with another man. And that man. No, I don't want to think about anything right now. Later, I lied to Daniel.
On a trip.
Saying a friend invited me. I had told him that the headache from the barbecue had been lingering, so a friend invited me to rest, I explained. Great. Have a good time. Maybe I'll invite Katie over for dinner. Daniel said it naturally, without any guilt, and I felt a chill of disgust. Later, I went to the address Brian had given me and visited a relative's vacation home. Brian came to pick me up by car at the station where I arrived after changing trains.
Thank you so much for coming all the way out here.
He bowed his head deeply, looking sincerely apologetic. Even though he went out of his way to prepare a hiding place for me. I felt something welling up inside me because of Brian's kindness. The area seemed to be a region where vacation homes were lined up, and there were several beautiful houses. The vacation home was surrounded by many trees. Brian's father, Andrew, was standing in front of the entrance waiting for me. It was the third time I had met him. At the family meeting, the wedding, and now. Katie had told me he was quite wealthy, which made me a little intimidated, so I bowed deeply, expressing my gratitude for sheltering me.
Thank you very much.
Sorry to start right away, but let's discuss inside. As soon as we entered the vacation home, we started talking with Brian and Andrew. Apparently, Brian had already told his parents that they had been drugged with sleeping pills. And he explained how it was suspicious that Katie had spent more money than his salary since their marriage. It was a bit awkward for me because Katie is my daughter.
We also need to clarify the source of the money Katie is spending. My dad is going to suggest donating to Daniel's business, so why don't we wait and see?
The phrase wait and see caught my attention. What could we learn from just waiting and seeing? What kind of conclusion will come from what we are about to do? Brian seemed to sense my hesitation, and when our eyes met, he smiled.
Maybe we are misunderstanding. Let's be a little sneaky to make sure we can live peacefully again.
I couldn't help but laugh at Brian's words. A misunderstanding? Surely, definitely not. We were just trying to clarify an answer that we were almost certain of. After a few days of regaining my composure living in the vacation home Brian lent me, I felt bad about staying indefinitely, so I decided to return home. A few weeks later, Andrew officially contacted Daniel's company to offer a donation. Since he was a wealthy man, the proposal was immediately trusted, and Daniel and Katie were delighted without checking the specific date of the funding. I quietly spent my time, ignoring their joy. After returning home, I found it a bit painful to stay inside, so I made it a habit to take walks recently. Right in front of my house, there is a field of wheat, with green stalks of the same height stretching out. Walking along the rarely trafficked paved road, I looked up at the larks flying far away. Life after the donation offer was like living in luxury. Daniel believed he had received the funding and bought a luxury car under the guise of a company vehicle. As for Katie, she continued to splurge on beauty treatments and nail salons, even when their savings ran out. They seemed to have a naive expectation that the funds would come in eventually. One day, we had a dinner meeting to discuss the funding. Daniel, Katie, Brian, and Andrew were coming to our house. Daniel bent his back, repeatedly thanking Andrew. "We really owe so much to Brian. Katie always says she's so happy to have married such a wonderful person." Daniel was trying to curry favor with Andrew, but Andrew didn't even give him a polite smile, instead quietly placing a folder on the table in front of them. Thinking it was a document related to a donation, Daniel said happily, "Thank you very much." But as he read through the contents, his face quickly turned pale.
"We did some research on your company while considering funding, and some shocking facts came to light."
Daniel, sweating profusely, scanned the document. The document contained two main points: evidence of an affair between Daniel and Katie, and a tax audit of expenses that had been falsely claimed as company costs. Seeing the proof of Katie's affair with Daniel made me want to cover my face in shame. Katie had been buying jewelry and spa treatments, charging them all to the company's expenses, which led to back taxes.
"We cannot provide funding to a company like this. This is ridiculous."
Daniel, visibly shaken, spilled his coffee. Katie, who was nearby, quickly stood up with trembling hands to clean the spill.
"Katie, I'm divorcing you and will be seeking compensation in the divorce court." "What? Compensation in the divorce court? What are you talking about?" "You cheated on me. It's only natural. And Kristen too."
With that, Brian looked at me. Daniel, staring at the document, turned his frightened gaze towards me.
"I'm also divorcing Daniel and will be seeking compensation." "What kind of nonsense is this? This can't be happening."
Daniel, choking on his words, dropped the document to the floor, trembling. Katie, with a scared expression, moved closer to Daniel and pointed at Brian with quivering lips.
No, it was you who was having the affair. Brian and Mom were having an affair."
Katie continued to scream irrational excuses and shift the blame until the very end. They kept making desperate excuses, but the evidence was undeniable. Finally, as if resigning to his fate, Daniel slumped his shoulders and began to speak.
"I started a relationship with Katie, but I realized there was no love there,"
he said. At first, he had resisted Katie's advances, knowing she was only after his money. But as Katie became more physically attractive and I, on the other hand, aged and lost my charm, he made his choice.
"I'm just a man. We're not even blood related. I couldn't resist."
Katie had suggested putting sleeping pills in our drinks on the day of the barbecue. After making Brian and me drink the sleeping pills, they planned to strip us and put us in the same bed, taking photos to blackmail us for money. How shallow could they be? I looked at the two of them with a cold stare, beyond contempt.
"I'm really sorry. Please forgive me. I beg you." "I'm also very sorry. I don't want to break up with you, Brian."
I said nothing, just watched the two of them continue to apologize. I couldn't find any words. There was no way I could forgive them. I couldn't possibly forgive them. Seeing my silence, Katie eventually looked up and yanked on Daniel's sleeve forcefully.
This is all your fault. How are we supposed to handle the credit card bills next week? What were you thinking, spending all that money? I also have debts from gambling. We're broke. What are we going to do?
This is exactly what one would call a scene of utter chaos. Katie is pulling at Daniel's hair and clothes forcefully, continuing her aggressive actions, while he is desperately trying to stop her by shouting. Their yelling voices are surely reaching the ears of the neighbors. Even though they are stepchildren, knowing that they had a relationship would make it impossible for anyone with common sense to continue living in this neighborhood. That surely applies to me as well. When I think that I won't be able to see the view outside the window anymore, I feel a bit sad. After that, Katie and Brian divorced and moved far away. Katie got involved in the nightlife, but her life didn't go well, and she drowned in alcohol, continuing to accumulate debt. Daniel, after paying a large amount of alimony from the divorce trial, was also burdened with debt repayment and his company went bankrupt. He disappeared as if fleeing, and now he is said to be homeless, hiding somewhere. Brian, after divorcing Katie, learned from his failed marriage and found a good match. I received alimony from Daniel in the divorce trial. Even though his company went bankrupt and he was burdened with debt repayment, it's unclear how he managed to come up with a large sum of money, but he showed his capability at the last moment. After divorcing Daniel and selling our house, I decided to return to my parents' home. On the plane back to my parents' home, I thought about many things. I lost Christopher to illness, remarried, then divorced again, and was betrayed by my daughter. What kind of face should I show my parents now? There are many wheat fields around my parents' home. Pulling a large suitcase, I kept walking down the long asphalt road. It was warm enough to make me sweat. The season was about to welcome early summer. When I returned to my parents' home, they accepted me without asking any questions, but why didn't they ask me anything? Were they pitying me? Even so, they naturally accepted me. While gazing at the serene rural landscape, I realized I needed to look at my life ahead. Thanks to Dad's connections, I got a job at the local agricultural cooperative and felt I had established my life foundation. Since then, I have built a good relationship with Andrew, and although we don't see each other often, we occasionally have meals together when he comes near. It was spring, a few years after I returned to my parents' home. It was a sudden event. On the desk, there was a wedding ring I received from the late Christopher. I was a bit shaken and held the ring in my palm, gazing at it. While I was standing there in shock, Mom came over from the kitchen with her bent back and wiped the table. Christopher's parents came a long time ago and said they wanted Kristen to have this. I stood there, unable to say anything. Outside the window, there are wheat fields. Beyond the clear landscape, I am here. A skylark continues to sing as if asserting its presence. Tears well up, and I sling my bag over my shoulder and ride off on my bike. I keep riding through the deserted wheat fields, sweating on my forehead but continuing forward. What should I do from now on? I don't know. But I will keep going. I'll save my complaints for the very end, after I've lived my life to the fullest. Caleb, I have a suggestion for you. How about helping us out with some farm work? My 14-year-old grandson Caleb looked at me with disdain in his eyes.
Help with farm work? That's lame. Farming doesn't make any money. It's just old people playing in the dirt. I don't want to do that.
His words were full of prejudice. Since he felt that way, I thought it was important to teach him the reality, so I decided to provoke him a bit. Oh.
You don't even have the strength to play in the dirt? How weak. Are you weaker than a fly? But when it comes to running away, you're as fast as a cockroach.
Calling my grandson a fly or a cockroach felt a bit harsh, but sometimes you have to push the right buttons to get through. Sure enough, my words made him angry.
What? Don't insult me. Who are you calling a fly or a cockroach? Don't underestimate me. Fine, I'll do it. I'll finish that dirt playing in no time.
Even though he was all talk, there's no such thing as farm work that can be done quickly. Basically, he was hilariously ignorant at this point, but soon enough, he would come to realize the harsh reality. I'm Amelia. I'm 66 years old and run a farm in a rural area. My husband Liam, who is either already or still 70 years old, is still working hard. Naturally, or perhaps it's odd to say, we have a daughter, Sophia, who is already married and has moved out, and a grandson, Caleb. In August, I got a call from Sophia.
Mom, we're coming to visit during Caleb's vacation.
Got it, we'll be waiting. Since Sophia was coming back, it was only natural that she would bring Caleb along, but it had been quite a while since I last saw Caleb, so I asked Sophia. By the way, how old is Caleb now? He's 14. He's that old already. I felt the rapid passage of time. If my memory serves, the last time I saw him, he was 10. Even though he is my beloved grandson, to be honest, I didn't have a very good impression of him. Sure, when he was a toddler, he wasn't much trouble, but as he grew older and became more aware, he was, to put it mildly, a handful. No, to be blunt, he was a self-assertive brat. Here's what I remember. A mobile phone is certainly indispensable in life now, but giving one to an elementary school kid? Maybe that's an outdated thought. By the time I noticed, Caleb already had a mobile phone. And he never let it go.
Caleb, can you put your phone down during meals?
Why? It's my business. I couldn't understand why his phone was so important that he had to use it during meals, but I decided to keep quiet, chalking it up to a generational difference. Even at meals, Caleb was selfish and had a strong aversion to certain foods.
I don't want vegetables. Give me meat.
You need a balanced diet.
Shut up. I don't want what I don't want.
Everyone has food preferences, so maybe it's not a big deal, but his extreme pickiness worried me. If that was all, it wouldn't be so bad, but he was also brazen and bold.
Grandma, give me some pocket money.
He held out his hand without any hesitation.
I can give you some, but you could ask a bit more politely, don't you think?
Given how insolent Caleb has been from such a young age, it's only natural to worry about his upbringing. So, I tried to scold him gently, but he responded with a face full of anger, yelling.
It's normal for grandparents to give their grandchildren pocket money. Why do you have to be so annoying about it?
It's not that I dislike giving pocket money, but the way he demanded it made me feel as if he were trying to stifle me. No matter how much I love my grandchild, it was complicated. He's always been like this, so Liam, who had had enough, spoke up.
Sophia, what's going on with Caleb's manners?
My husband Jackson believes in raising him freely and openly. Sophia said this, but I couldn't just accept that, so I asked.
Is Jackson taking the lead in raising him?
He's barely involved in raising him. It seemed like a huge contradiction that, despite Jackson's supposed philosophy, he wasn't actually involved. But that didn't leave much room for intervention. Quite some time had passed since then, and I wondered if things had improved as I waited for Caleb to arrive.
Hello, Mom. Glad you could come, Sophia. Where's Jackson?
He couldn't come because of work. Caleb, who was now 14, looked appropriately grown up, and I was impressed.
Hello, Caleb. I'm gonna play games.
The important thing was that he entered the house without even greeting me and headed straight to his room. Even I thought this was too much, so I told Sophia.
Isn't it rude not to say hello?
Caleb never liked coming here. He's a city kid.
I understand that, but he should at least say hello, right?
It seemed that he hadn't grown at all inside. And I felt disappointed. Dealing with his selfishness was my challenge. Even though I was worried, I couldn't just drive Caleb away, so I tried my best to take care of him, but it always ended in failure.
There's nothing around here anyway, right?
Caleb even refused to join our conversation, staying in his room and playing games. Even if that was acceptable, the real problem was at mealtime. I was the one who prepared the meals, and the menu was mainly vegetables. But he openly showed his dislike at the dinner table.
There's nothing here I can eat. Give me meat. I want meat. Think a little about your health. Shut up. I can't eat what I can't eat. And I definitely can't eat old people's cooking.
His childish outburst was expected, but I finally realized he was in his rebellious phase. But Liam was not one to stay silent.
If you don't want to eat, you don't have to. Amelia, clear Caleb's plate. But
just clear it. Okay. Following Liam's instructions, I cleared his plate. This is delicious. Amelia's vegetable-rich meals are delicious. There's no time for picky eating. Ah, it's so good. Clearly, Liam was speaking to him on purpose, but Caleb didn't respond.
The gentle taste of these vegetables is wonderful. Damn it. Fine, I'll just buy something from the store.
As Caleb stood up, irritated by Liam's provocations, Liam responded calmly.
That's fine, but the nearest store is a 30-minute walk away. What the hell is this place?
Caleb, who probably thought the store was much closer, looked astonished.
Caleb, why don't you try it?
No.
It's not like I'm trying to poison you. I absolutely refuse. I won't eat vegetables even if I die.
Watching his adamant refusal to eat vegetables made me worry about his future. It wasn't just about nutrition, but how he might struggle later in life. That day, he stubbornly refused to eat anything at all. Standing his ground is sometimes important, but not when it comes to something as essential as eating. The next day, Caleb stayed holed up in his room, and I couldn't shake off my worry, so I talked to Liam about it. Honey, isn't there something we can do about Caleb?
Well, maybe we should have him experience our work for a day. If he gets interested in vegetables, his attitude might change.
That sounds like a good idea. With a plan in place, we proposed it to Caleb.
Caleb, how about you try working on a farm for a day? What? Farming? That's so lame. It's just old folks playing in the dirt for no money. Have you ever made any money from it? No, right?
His ignorance was astounding, and his city upbringing seemed almost like a crime in its own way.
Farming is so uncool. Remember that time you brought those dirty, muddy vegetables to our house? Do you know how embarrassed I was? I got made fun of so much.
His complete lack of appreciation for those muddy vegetables, and his unwillingness to understand their value, only fueled my anger.
Why don't you try it first before spouting such arrogant opinions? No way. I don't have time for that.
Liam, knowing Caleb would refuse, smirked mischievously.
Oh, you can't even play in the dirt? Pretty weak, huh?
City kids are weaker than I thought. But you sure can run away fast like a cockroach. I knew provoking him wasn't the best approach, but I joined in, making Caleb's face flush with anger.
Who's a roach? Fine, I'll do it.
Though he agreed, he had no idea how challenging it would be. So, Liam drove the truck with Caleb, and we headed to the farm.
I'll finish this quickly. Farming is no big deal.
Caleb seemed overconfident, but as soon as Liam stopped the truck at the field, Caleb looked puzzled.
What's this, Grandpa? There's nothing here.
Everything you see is the field.
You'll be helping us harvest carrots. What? Everything I see? Isn't that way too much? Are we really doing this?
He was stunned, clearly underestimating what farm work entailed.
Well, let's start playing in the dirt. Don't chicken out now. Okay.
With Caleb looking shocked, we entered the field. Liam and I were used to it, but for him, it was a completely new world.
What is this? I can't pull it out.
Don't just yank it out with brute force, you'll break it.
Don't make it sound so easy. I can't do that.
Oh, you can't even handle that?
Ugh.
Just pulling out the carrots without breaking them was a challenge for Caleb, but he silently worked, spurred by Liam's taunts.
What is this? There's a gross bug here. It's disgusting.
Seeing him panic, I noticed it was just an earthworm. Oh dear, haven't you ever seen an earthworm before?
What is this monster? An earthworm? What's that?
Calling a mere earthworm a monster showed how sheltered he was, and it made him seem pitiable rather than just ignorant.
Make sure you handle the earthworms gently. Ew. There are so many.
Caleb, looking pale and on the verge of tears, couldn't just stop working because of a little discomfort.
You can scream all you want, but keep moving your hands. This mud play is just getting started. Yeah. Don't mock me.
He tried to act tough, but it didn't last long.
Gosh. It's heavy.
Even the weight of a carrot seemed to trouble Caleb, but helping him wouldn't do any good. You're weak.
Aren't you a man? Yeah, but it's just a game, right? Isn't it fun?
Didn't you say you'd finish quickly? Liam was being a bit harsh, but it seemed necessary for Caleb to understand. An hour passed.
Is there no break?
Is there a break in play? Though he said it provocatively, in reality, Caleb was weak and already out of breath. Grandpa is right. It's a game, so enjoy it more. Caleb, holding himself accountable to his own words, silently continued the harvest. As more time passed, Caleb's cheeky attitude had completely calmed down. All right, let's take a break.
Finally, I'm so thirsty. At least give me some water.
Caleb lay down on the ground, just breathing heavily. Caleb, try this. Liam offered a carrot to Caleb, wiping off just a bit of mud.
Huh? Can I eat it like this?
Caleb's attitude showed no aversion to vegetables, only hunger, so Liam replied confidently. Yeah, it's even better this way.
All right.
With a slightly trembling hand, he took the carrot and bit into it decisively. It's good. Better than I thought. Fresh, juicy carrots are incredibly delicious when just harvested, especially when exhausted. Yeah, it's delicious. I never knew something could taste this good. It was probably just a case of him being a picky eater. While I questioned my daughter Sophia's and Jackson's parenting approach, seeing him devour the carrot with such enthusiasm made all that irrelevant. Later, as we wrapped up the work and headed home.
Grandma, I'm so sweaty. What should I do?
Take a shower.
Okay. I have something to talk about after your shower.
Understood. Caleb responded obediently and went to shower.
So, what are your thoughts on the old man's mud play?
Liam asked Caleb with a sly grin after he finished his shower.
I'm sorry. It was really hard. That wasn't a game at all. Don't think that was all there is. Farming requires a lot more effort and time.
Liam then explained the farming process in detail to him.
It takes that much effort?
Yes, it does.
You said you can't make money from farming, right? Didn't you know vegetables are priced and sold?
No, I didn't think it mattered.
I was shallow in my thinking.
Caleb seemed to reflect, admitting his fault more readily than expected.
The carrot you ate today is the taste of a farmer's hard work. Remember that well. I won't forget. Never. That taste will stay with me forever.
His earnest declaration was reassuring, showing that the lesson had made an impact. The change in Caleb was dramatic, as he came to talk to me early the next morning.
Grandpa, Grandma, can I help with the farm work again today?
For us, having an extra pair of hands was a blessing, so there was no reason to refuse. As a result, Caleb helped with the farm work every day during his stay at our house. He seemed to find the work rewarding, even though he had only experienced a part of it. In terms of meals, there was also a significant change. He no longer disliked vegetable-based dishes.
This soup is delicious. I like the taste of the carrots. The grilled bell peppers are also great.
Perhaps because it had awakened his senses, he had developed a liking for carrots.
Why did I ever hate something so tasty? I feel so silly.
As a growing boy, Caleb ate heartily, and he no longer had any picky eating habits. Eventually, the day came for Caleb and Sophia to return home.
Grandpa, Grandma, thank you. And I'm sorry for everything.
Caleb, bowing his head sincerely, seemed to have grown into someone we wouldn't need to worry about for the future. So I smiled at him and said, "It's okay. I'm glad you understand. Come visit us again."
Thanks.
With a boyish grin, Caleb and Sophia left. After that, things took an unexpected turn. The following summer, Sophia brought Caleb back to our house again, and Caleb spoke with a serious and determined tone.
Grandpa, Grandma, I've made up my mind. I'm going to attend a high school where I can study agriculture.
His eyes were filled with determination that seemed unshakable. It was Sophia who seemed confused by his decision.
Jackson said a regular high school would be fine, but I replied that we were raising him to be free and independent. So, I supported Caleb's decision.
That's the right call. What's needed for learning is not just talent, but most importantly, the will to do it.
Exactly. That's right.
He went on to attend the high school where he could study agriculture. According to Sophia, he enjoyed his studies there. Time flies, and 3 more years passed. Caleb graduated from agricultural high school and visited us that summer.
Grandpa, Grandma, I have a question. Is there anyone to take over the farm?
When Caleb suddenly asked this, Liam confessed with a slightly apologetic look.
No, unfortunately, there's no successor. We were thinking of ending it with us.
It was true that there was no successor, and we had been lightly discussing what to do with the unused farmland. But hearing this, Caleb leaned forward and said,
"That's a waste. If there's no successor, can I take over?"
It was a completely unexpected offer, and I was quite surprised.
Well, if you ask if it's good or bad, it's good. But Caleb, are you really okay with it?
Given the times, traditional farming was not exactly popular for the effort it took. So, I felt a bit guilty about letting young Caleb take over such a humble and dirty job. But Caleb, with pride, said, Of course it's okay. I chose this path because I wanted to repay Grandpa and Grandma. I have no regrets.
I see. If you have that kind of determination, it would be more rude to refuse.
Thank you, Caleb. It was an unexpected moment when a successor emerged. I can't forget the taste of those carrots I had back then. I realized that the rich flavor came from the care put into growing them. I feel it's my duty to protect that. That's a lovely thing to say. But don't put too much pressure on yourself. Vegetables are delicate. They carry the emotions of the grower.
I understand. Don't worry, I'll take care of it.
When did he become so reliable? I was simply moved beyond words. With this in mind, I couldn't help but decide what to make for dinner tonight. Then let's make carrot soup for dinner tonight.
Yay! Thank you, Grandma.
In my personal theory, to love growing vegetables, you first have to love eating them, and Caleb was more than qualified for that. And after that, I lived without any worries, surrounded by peace and happiness.